Good morning, everybody. I'm talking on behalf of EBB Publishers based in Barcelona. My name is Marta Palomares. Some of you might know me from previous Bologna fairs, and either me or my colleague, Giorgio Picagnol. And this morning, I've got the great big honor of being able to interview the great author, Care Santos, whom some of you might already know. And it's for me a great pleasure, and as I said, a big honor to having her with us here to interview. Now, Care Santos, some of you might already know, was born in 1970, is a writer, also a literary critic, and at university she studied law and philology. But now her greatest achievement is that she's written more than 80 books for adults, YA, children, short stories, and also poetry, among others. And the interesting fact is that she started writing when she was only 8 years old. So she was really, really a small young girl. And she was awarded her first literary prize at 25 years old. So, you know, it's been a big achievement. She started very young. She's still on it. And now she can boast of having achieved a few, if not to say quite a few, literary awards. Other than that, she's the mother of 3 children. She lives in a beautiful town very near Barcelona by the Mediterranean Sea. So can I introduce you to Care Santos? So Care, thank you ever so much for being here with us today.
You're welcome. The pleasure is absolutely mine. And thank you very much. You know everything, Marta, about me. I am afraid.
Right. Well, it's been a few years since you've been, shall we say, famous. So this is why, and I've been a huge fan of yours, not only with the books that you've published with EVB, of course, it's the publishing company where I work, but also as a reader. I'm an enthusiastic reader. I love your books, so I've read all your YA books as well. So anyway, as I said, I'm really honored today.
So lucky me, you are my reader.
So let's start the actual interview. So I'd like to talk about the success. I mean, you know, in this case, the book Lie. So what reason do you think there is behind the reader's, shall we say, addiction to this story, which is still running as #1 after 6 years of having been published? And why did a standalone, as it was in that moment, actually become a saga? Because we've got Alive, Truth, Fear, and now Ben. So what would you say?
I really don't know. If I knew the answer to that question, Marta, most likely I would not share it here. Success is always a deep mystery for authors and for everyone. I don't know how it works, and I hope I don't figure it out. I just know that I am always trying to write thrilling stories that hook my readers from beginning to end, but I really don't know when or why I get it. I am so glad they love these stories that are so special to me and that I wrote for them. Further than this, I just suspect there are some topics in this trilogy that they could find interesting: drugs, friendship, murder, prison, of course, love, always love. And I understand it because they are also interesting for me. Maybe this is the secret. I am interested in what is happening to teenagers. I am, as you said, a mother of 3 teenagers, 2 boys and 1 girl. And I believe that this age is the most interesting, in a good and in a bad sense as well, in a lifetime. I really believe it. So I write it. On why a standalone book became a saga, it was the result of the investigation and the writing of the first one, The Lie, that I figured some things out that I had not yet thought about. I discovered how difficult it was to leave the prison for young people who had been there. And I wondered how it would be for Eric. For Eric, my main character, the main character in the novel. Very often my books come from a question I ask myself. And very often the only way to answer this question is to write a book, to write a novel. Perhaps this is what I write, truth for, to find answers to difficult questions. I don't always get it, but I keep trying, I keep writing.
So writing becomes like a therapy then, or was as a method to find answers to so many human problems then, as I see.
Yes, always. It's always a therapy to write.
Mm-hmm. So, and this leads me to the following question, which is translations. I mean, your books have been translated to more than 22 languages, and even audiovisuals adaptations have also been made, such as a TV series, etc. So this saga has actually started its international path, and we can see it because behind me there are a few, and also behind you we can see some of the covers from many countries in Europe, in America, and so do you agree that the success of having these translations from many parts of the world, do you think that this plot can take place anywhere in the world?
Yes, I agree. Emotions are universal. Fear and loss and loneliness and friendship and love. People feel the same all over the world. Maybe our culture, our landscapes, our food are different, but our feelings are exactly the same. And these feelings and how they affect our lives are what literature is about. I think my novels can be understood everywhere. Although when I wrote, I only thought in myself. But this is the point, I guess. You are writing for no one, or only for you, or only for your perfect reader. And in fact, you are writing for thousands of people. And it's magic. I don't know how this is happening. I really not.
Indeed, for thousands, because just behind me, and I can see behind you as well, we've got translations from Poland, Lithuania, Latin America, from many countries, from the west to the east of Europe. So it is indeed magic to have all those readers from so many countries around the world reading your words that, as you say, you started writing for you. So really a very interesting approach. So about a recognition, right? So Alive, the first book of the saga, shall we say the first one, because Ben would be like a spin-off. Alive won the Edebe Award Prize in 2015. And this past year, you were awarded the prize Cervantes Chico, which is really important for your career in YA literature. And you can also boast of 14 more awards. So, you know, it's quite a list I'm sure you feel very proud of. But is there one recognition you're especially proud of, and why? Or maybe one that you've still not achieved and you'd love to be awarded it?
You know, I don't know if proud is the word. I feel very happy this. Every recognition is special in its special way. The prize is the most prestigious prize in young adult literature in Spain. When I began to write, to win it was a dream. Some of my most admired authors had won it. And now, years later, I am in that list of authors, and I can still believe it entirely. And Cervantes Chico, well, it proves that I am getting old, isn't it? Seriously, I am so happy to have won it. It's my first career award. Mm-hmm. It must mean something.
For sure.
But let me speak about another award that was very special for me. I won it when I was 15 in one of the first years of high school. I was a teenager, like my readers. It was a poetry award. Yeah, I was a poet then, never mind. And it was the first one. This award showed me I was capable of winning a literature award. Other people could like what I wrote. Without this first little award, I would have never dared to try it again. So that award was really, really important for me.
It's funny because when I introduced you, I said that you'd won your first award when you were 25. But I bet now that after this answer you've just given me, it shows that when you were 25, you got the first, like, say, the official recognition one. But when you were 15, you were awarded this poetry, which made such a change in your life. And sometimes sure. We are not aware how these little, not little, but these, say, everyday thing in a school year, it's usually something which is usually done in many schools. So something like a school event actually nearly changed your life.
Yes, sure. There are really important years between 12 and 18, maybe. And there were an important years for me.
Mm-hmm. So going back to that age, right? So let's see about the reference, right? So who are your literary reference in YA, and which authors did you read back then when you were a teenager? So is there like an author whom you recognize yourself in, for example?
When I was a girl and a teenager, I read everything. And also now I am reading everything. There were a lot of books to start when within my parents' home. I began there in my parents' library. Then I flight and I discovered the public library, the 19th century shelves, English, American, and especially Russian authors were very, very important. I wouldn't be myself without, I don't know, Wilkie Collins, Charles Dickens, Bronte sisters, Ivan Turgenev, Fyodor Dostoevsky. I read them with passion. And I also read classics and mythology and Stephen King and fairy tales and Lope de Vega. I wasn't a very systematic reader, as you can see. Curiously, I read classic young adult authors much later when I wasn't a young reader anymore. And I then became a big fan of Roald Dahl, Astrid Lindgren, Johanna Spyri, and many others. And as well of some youngest ones like Ligia Bujunga, I love her, or Patricia McCormick, or Cesar Mallorquí. All readers of all ages must read young adult literature. It has the power to make people happy, I think. It was a great discovery.
I totally agree with you. Even now that I'm reaching, shall we say, old age or mature age nowadays, I'm still a fan of young adult reading. I mean, I discovered it when I was about 11 or 12, and I still reread some
Sure.
books that I cherish in my heart. So I see what you mean. Sometimes you discover some authors, some books when you are supposedly out of that age, but I mean, you know, there's that care. I mean, literature is literature. I mean, you know, never mind what age it is supposed to be read within. So yeah, I totally agree with you.
Also to open your mind and to discover other worlds. Yeah.
Totally agree.
I agree.
So you have mentioned a few authors that have helped you become an author yourself. So is there a book you would have liked to have written?
Wow. I think that I am not a jealous person. I admire a lot of writers from different periods, and I love the books they have written. I don't try to imitate them. I never did. But of course, I have received their influence. Literature is tradition. You can write without other writers existing before you. And at the same time, you are step in this big stair, and every step is important. That is what I believe. Do you want to know what makes me feel really, really jealous?
What is it that?
Composers, musicians. I wish I could play the piano or the cello, better the cello, I think. Well, or compose a symphony. Well, it wouldn't be necessary, a symphony. A song would be enough. Song. It would be so happy if I had some talent with music, but sadly, I have known.
Oh, well, I mean, but your talent, your writing talent is so big, it leaves you no space for music, I think. So, talking about music and literature, of course. So, this leads me to something such as inspiration. So, what inspires you? At the beginning of the saga, you wrote that a piece of news, in fact, you can read that in the actual book. You wrote that a piece of news you had read had touched you deeply. So, do you use other sources to create your plots, or what do you base your characters on?
Yes, you are right. The news usually inspires me. I collect pieces of news I am interested in case I will want to write about it later. I have started a lot of books based on them. By the way, inspiration could be everywhere, even under your feet. The most important thing is to look, paying attention, not only to see, this is really different. And in the same sense, it is important to listen carefully, not only to hear. We live in a very noisy world, but how many things do we listen carefully to every day? I think that inspiration is mainly an attitude. You can find it in every little thing if you look around. But this is important to look around. And it's important to know, I say it to young people who are beginning to write, that writers don't find stories because they are superheroes or they have some kind of superpower. Writers, also me, of course, find things to tell because we are always looking for them. That's it, work. I believe in work in some way, another inspiration, work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree with you that work is and keeping on with working is inspiration. But allow me to disagree with you when you say that writers are no superheroes. I think you're a superhero, and your writing capacity is absolutely a superpower. So I totally disagree here. But anyways, so I bet that you have a big library at home. You are, shall I say, a compulsive reader. So I would say that a bit like me, that I also treasure my books. You consider your library as part of your treasure. So allow me one final question to this interview, which is, what book would you save if your house was on fire, and why?
Wow. I have a 12,000 books library. So if my library was on fire, I would be a terrible decision, an impossible one, in fact. Maybe I would catch a special one, but only one is difficult, more special than valuable, maybe. A copy of El Quijote. I collect copies of Cervantes Classic. But which one? Another problem. Or one Oscar Wilde Salome bound in blue silk, very beautiful, that I bought in Charing Cross Road in London 20 years ago. I love this book. Every book owner knows that every book is also a memory, you know. So this makes things harder to, in the case you have to choose only one. Or maybe a 2 volumes, 1001 Nights, illustrated, really nice, a special present for a beloved person. Who knows? Who knows what I would decide in the last second? I can't know. None of my books, for sure. None of them. So to have to choose would be terrible. Should I better put a fire alarm in my library, Martha? Am I allowed to it?
Yes, I think that would be that would be probably a good idea, considering what you said, that it's not only all the many books you have, but also the fact that they are special, because as you very correctly said, every book is a memory. So sometimes it's not a question of the value in itself, of how much it costs in pounds if it was in Charing Cross Road, in euros if it was in Barcelona, but the fact that every book brings back a memory of when you read it, who gave you that book. So I know that feeling. So Kare Santos, I would like to thank you ever so much for this interview. It's been an utter pleasure to be here with you these minutes and share your love for literature, share your reference, explain how you work, explain those authors who influenced you. And so thank you ever so much, Kare. It's been an actual pleasure to have you here with us today.
The pleasure was mine, and thank you very much for everything, Marta.